We welcome in Kyle Rowland from the Blade as Danny Rogers and Isaiah Hull, who usually are here at this time. They're enjoying the Michigan off week. But Kyle, we talked in the summer about how we've seen a subdued Jim Harbaugh this offseason. Well, we can throw that out the window after what happened pregame against Michigan State.
Yeah, it was entertaining. I think it's what people like to see in rivalries. But all heck kind of broke loose, I would say. Michigan State out there kind of instigating it. I think Devin Bush was the only Michigan player that maybe went a little beyond what he should have. But Jim Harbaugh, I think, loved winning the game. And not just because they won, but because then afterwards he could kind of give his Bush League speech and then yesterday go on a 3-minute rant against Mark D'Antonio and Michigan State. So it made for an entertaining couple days, no doubt.
Well, I think maybe lost in the shenanigans with the pregame is the way Michigan just completely dominated Michigan State. It was 21-7 was the final, but it was not a game that was as close as that score indicated.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan bullied them the whole game. I mean, it could have been 49-7 easily. The touchdown Michigan State scored was basically gift wrapped, fumble inside the 10-yard line. These stats were just incredibly lopsided. 394 to 94, something like that on offense. Michigan State's lowest total yardage in about 60-some years. It was an ugly game all the way around for Michigan State. And I think going forward, it'll be interesting to see what becomes of that program because the way the Big Ten East is set up with Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, one of those four teams is always going to be the odd team out. And it looks like Michigan State may be the one that's going to fall down a little bit.
And with the way Michigan beat Wisconsin, the way Michigan then beat Michigan State, the Wolverines, and with what happened in West Lafayette this past weekend, Michigan is now firmly in control of the Big Ten East. They've got Penn State coming into Ann Arbor in 2 weeks. Then Wolverines then head down to Columbus for the season ender. But right now, Michigan, if you're going to pick one team out of the Big Ten, make the college football playoff, it looks like it's going to be the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Who would have ever thought September 2nd? This is a conversation we'd be having, 51 days later. It's really shocking, honestly, just how far Ohio State has fallen, I think, since the beginning of the year. But the offensive line of Michigan has just improved immensely. I mean, it's just going straight up. The quarterback play of Shea Patterson has been really solid. They can run the football well. They have playmakers. And then the defense is just like it is every other year, one of the best in the country. So they've just kind of got the total weapon. I think that they're a major issue for every opponent simply because, A, that they're just good, but B, they're constantly improving every single week. And there aren't a whole lot of teams that kind of do that steadily throughout the season. So right now, I mean, I think they're the favorite in the Big Ten.
You mentioned the offensive line. That's always been one of the hallmark of Ed Warner's offensive lines is they get better as the season goes on. And after a performance against Notre Dame, which left a lot of question marks, all of a sudden that O-line looks to be one of the strengths of this Michigan team.
Yeah, and it's actually, as you mentioned, kind of very similar to 2012 Ohio State, Ed Warner's first year there. They were just dreadful in the opener that year against Buffalo. Khalil Mack completely embarrassed Ohio State. He was the best player on the field that day. It was similar in that Notre Dame game earlier this year. Michigan's offensive line, awful, and it's just gotten better and better each week. And I mean, it's one of the best in the Big Ten now. I mean, I'm stunned that in 6 weeks, however long it's been, that they are as good as they are right now. I could have maybe believed at the end of the year that they could be like they are right now. But to be, at this point is pretty stunning to me.
With Penn State coming to town next weekend, a Nittany Lion team that lost to Ohio State, then lost to Michigan State, struggled a little bit against Indiana. Is this maybe a Nittany Lions team that's perhaps a little dangerous now because it's a wounded Lions team? Yeah,
a little under the radar maybe. I think people are definitely thinking Michigan will take care of this game. 3:30 game. I thought it was going to be a night game. I think that helps the road team a little bit. But I just think that the things Penn State does well on offense, I just feel like Michigan's defense can kind of control that. Trace McSorley obviously is someone to be concerned about, but I feel like Michigan can kind of get those things under control. And Penn State's defense is still certainly shaky, and I expect Karan Higdon to continue to do what he does. I mean, he has 120 yards, it seems like, every game, and I don't really see that slowing down at this point.
Hasn't been all good news for Michigan, however, as Rashawn Gary did not play against Michigan State. And now there are some rumblings that perhaps Rashawn Gary will not return for the Wolverines and will sit out the second half of the season to focus on getting ready for the NFL draft.
Yeah, there's definitely been mixed messages, I think, sent by everyone. On Monday, Jim Harbaugh said, Rashawn Gary hasn't said that he's not going to come back this season. Rashawn Gary's mother then tweeted out kind of saying no one really knows the truth. Don Brown said on Tuesday that the plan is for him to come back to get healthy these couple weeks before the Penn State game. I don't really know what's going to happen, honestly. It feels like a Joe or a Nick Bosa-like situation,
right.
Where his NFL future is kind of in play at this point. I don't blame him for that. I don't blame any player for ever looking out for themselves. You got to look out for yourself. You don't want to aggravate an injury. It's a shoulder issue. So I think that will definitely be an interesting thing to look forward going to as the season progresses. But without him, they've been fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of surprising just how good they've been. Josh Uche is a guy who has emerged as a great playmaker, and Kwity Paye, the guy who's really replaced Rashawn Gary on that line, is starting to play really, really well.
On the other side of the line, Michigan losing James Hudson, the Central Catholic grad, announcing on Monday that he's going to leave the program. It's a very interesting timing for James Hudson. He redshirted last year as a true freshman. He only played in 3 games this year as he made the transition from defensive line to offensive line. He's going to go someplace else. We don't know where that is at this point. But he was somebody that Michigan was counting on to being an offensive lineman, a starter perhaps next year and down the road.
Yeah, very unexpected. He's someone that Ed Warner and Jim Harbaugh have spoke glowingly of. Tim Drevno, former offensive line coach, did the same thing last year. Came to Michigan as a defensive lineman, was convinced to change sides. He was a little hesitant on that, didn't really want to do it. But all reports have been that he's been playing well. He was injured in that Wisconsin game. Mm-hmm. And then when Juwan Bushell-Beatty got hurt against Michigan State, it was Andrew Stuber who replaced him. That surprised folks. And we find out now he's left the program. So it's unfortunate. I think he's a really solid player. I think he's got a bright future. And I think he was going to be a part of Michigan's future on the offensive line.
And that's just kind of what the present is with high school, or not high school, but college athletics is guys are going to move around. And now you got James Hudson, who a couple years ago was highly touted as a defensive tackle. He's now played offensive line. So he could go pretty much anywhere he would like to go in the country, maybe play offense, maybe play defense. He's got plenty of options ahead of him. Certainly you're going to hear rumors about him going to Cincinnati, Toledo. Several other schools are going to be floated out there. So it's almost as if a second recruiting process is going through now.
Yeah, the most fascinating thing, I think, is going to be what position he plays at wherever he lands. And is he going to go through this process of finding a new school and say, hey, I want to play defense, and that's where I'm going to be. So that's the thing I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what he's going to do. Is he going to play offensive line, defensive line?
All right, thank you very much, Kyle Rowland from the Toledo Blade. Don't forget, next week, Danny Rogers and Isaiah Hull will be back breaking down the Michigan Wolverines.